Hello, welcome to Furry and Spoilt. I'm going to talk to you today about which foods not to feed your dogs. Here are my boys. We're not going to get much out of them this morning. They're all very sleepy. So first of all, the first one that quite shocked me was eggs. I recently, Humps, he's quite new to us, and he came with terrible arthritis. And even though I've had dogs for many, many years, I'd never actually come across a dog. None of my dogs had ever got arthritis. And so I had to learn about it and research it. And I found out that egg yolks contain an acid that really aggravates arthritis and makes it a lot worse. And I was surprised at that because my dogs used to get eggs quite regularly. And so I stopped that completely. Now, the membrane of the eggshell can contain salmonella. And so you've got to watch that. So I don't feed my dogs raw eggshells. Now, if the eggshell is cooked, then it's good because it's actually a calcium source. But raw eggshell, be careful of the salmonella. And eggs are okay, like for dogs generally. But if a dog is older or suffering with arthritis, then really not a good thing. The egg yolk in it contains an acid that makes it worse. So that was a new thing to me. So no eggs for my dogs. Basically because they're all getting on a bit now. They're all getting on. So I've stopped giving my boys eggs. Chocolate, I think a lot of people know about this one. But just in case you're new to the dog world, if it's your first dog, chocolate is very, very toxic to dogs. Very toxic. And so you mustn't give it to them. And you've got to watch things like any chocolate lying around. Toddlers feeding dogs chocolates. I saw a thing once which it made me laugh, and at the same time it was really sad. Somebody had hung chocolate decorations on their tree, and their dog was going up and sucking the chocolate out of it, and the dog was very, very ill as a result. So it's things like that. Grapes is another one. Now grapes and also raisins, because raisins are dried grapes, they are poisonous to dogs and can make them very ill. So don't feed them grapes or raisins. Right, now xylitol. Xylitol is a sweetener. Let me spell it out for you. It's Xylitol. It's a sweetener, and it's everywhere, and it's really, really toxic to dogs. And you've really got to watch it because it's in sweets. So again, I'm not shaming the toddlers, but toddlers are really, it's a lovely thing. But toddlers are such a one, aren't they, for sharing their stuff with dogs, which is great, and I love it, and I absolutely encourage relationships between toddlers and dogs. But they, if they're eating sweets and they're sugar, basically, xylitol will be in anything. Anything that's sugar free, there will be a sweetener in it, and xylitol is a kind of sweetener. So if it's sugar free, then there's a massive chance that it's got xylitol in it. So sweet, you need to watch. Humps here is terrible. If we're walking anywhere near where children are playing, he's terrible for finding sweets. And whilst I wouldn't imagine children would be on sugar-free sweets, it's still something to watch out for. And the other place where really need to watch it is peanut butter. Now, peanut butter, a lot of people do use peanut butter for dogs as treats or in Kongs and stuff like that. But I've stopped using it simply because I don't know that I would always... I just don't know that I would if I saw sugar-free peanut butter, I could get that. I wouldn't necessarily, I just don't think it's something that I would remember well enough. And so I've just stopped peanut butter because it's just not worth me risking it. I just don't think I could, there's a chance I could get the sugar-free one and it's got the xylitol in it. So I just don't do peanut butter anymore. Garlics and onions are toxic to dogs, aren't they, my darling? Yeah, oh yeah. So garlics and onions. Now, this is so recently I put out the recipe for cheap, healthy, grain-free dog food, homemade one, and part of that is that 50% of it is vegetables. Well, be careful of casserole packets because they'll they will have red or white onion in it, and you don't want to be feeding your dog onions or garlic, so watch that. Also, if you ever give your dog, I'm not a big fan of this because I think it's too risky, but if you give your dog scraps of dinner, be careful because it could so easily be onion and garlic in it. I'm not really, I mean, I am a fan of, in the olden days, like dogs live forever, and it was because they just ate table scraps. I think there's something in that, rather than eating all this processed dog food that's just full of grain. There's absolutely something in that, eating real food. But just be careful, because in case it's got garlic in it. Now, apples themselves aren't a problem. They're fine. They're actually a really healthy thing for a dog to eat. But apple core contains a chemical that is toxic to dogs. So the problem with that is, if you've got an apple tree, and we have, and apples fall all over the floor and the dogs go to get them, that can be a little bit of a problem. It doesn't affect all dogs. I know lots of dogs who eat loads of apples off the floor and there's never a problem. But it is something just to be aware of. If you've got the option, just give them the apple and not the core. Alcohol. Now, really, I thought, you can't put that on the list. That's ridiculous. Everybody knows dogs shouldn't drink alcohol. But, if you're a first-time dog owner, you're new to the dog world, you don't know. You just don't know. So, or it could be that, you maybe left your a glass of alcohol somewhere, and the dog has gone up and gone and drank some. Just be aware, alcohol is very toxic to dogs. Avoid at all costs. Now, dairy. Dairy contains lactose, and a lot of dogs are lactose intolerant. Not all dogs are, but a lot of dogs are lactose intolerant. And so avoid dairy, because even if they're not lactose intolerant, it can upset their stomach. So it's not toxic as such, but it can give them a runny tummy. And if they're lactose intolerant, it definitely will give them that. So avoid anything with dairy. I used to use cheese to do my training, and I had to stop because Harry here, he is very lactose intolerant. Albert isn't. He can eat the cheese. He's not lactose intolerant at all. And Hump's here, I don't know, because I'm not going to even try it. So cheese has been cut out because it made him quite squitty. Right, pork. Pork has a very high fat content, and that fat content can cause pancreatitis. And I've seen this happen to this gorgeous little darling boy of a dog that I knew, and somebody was looking after him. They got a takeaway, and they shared the takeaway with him. The fat content was way too high. He got pancreatitis, and he didn't die. He survived it, but he was very, very ill. So do not feed them pork, and do not feed them if you're having a takeaway, fried chicken or anything like that, anything high fat content. Do not feed them to your dogs, because that high fat content really causes them problems. It's horrible. So, don't do that. Now, right, so I've talked about this a lot, but I'll just quickly mention it. White fish and beef. I don't know why, but for some reason they cause flare-ups in dogs that have hot spots and itchy skin. So avoid that. And even if your dog doesn't have hot spots and itchy skin, I still wouldn't feed them to him, because there's something in them that affects some dogs. So even if your dog doesn't have that, there's something in it that doesn't agree. So I wouldn't have any dog on white fish or beef. Crisps and stuff like that, again, high salt, high fat content. It's just really bad for dogs. It will upset their stomachs. And also, feeding dogs snacks gets them fat so quickly. And they love it. They love it if you open a packet of crisps and you share it. Now, I'm not saying I've never been eating a packet of crisps and I haven't just sort of given my dogs a crisp. I'm not saying I've never done it. But I always lick the salt and the flavouring off if I go to give them one. And it's very, very rare. It isn't a regular occurrence. Just be careful of stuff like that. Now, this is another new one to me. Nutmeg. I didn't know nutmeg was such a toxic problem for dogs. And it's a bit of a tricky one, because if you have to confess, my husband has a thing about ginger biscuits. And now and again, if he's having one, I will let him give the dogs a little bit, just a little bit, but I will let him do it every now and again. But those ginger biscuits probably contain nutmeg. Now, there haven't been any problems, and it's probably because of the tiny little amount the dogs are getting, but it's caught me out. So no more. There won't be any more ginger biscuits for my boys. It can cause hallucinations. That's bad, isn't it? So, nutmeg, it's just a spice. But, again, I think it goes down to, don't be feeding your dog biscuits, cakes, stuff like that, because you don't know what's in it unless you made it. If you made it and there's not nutmeg in it, but you know, you don't know otherwise. Yeah, it can cause hallucinations. That would be terrible for them, terrifying. So yeah, that nuts, macadamia nuts are particularly bad for dogs. Normal nuts, they're not massively toxic, but macadamia are. Obviously, salted peanuts, anything like that, you know, you're going down the same old track of very fatty, very salty, just very bad for them. Now, bones. Oh, bones are they get a bit complicated with bones. So the general rule is, if it's a raw bone, then it's okay, but cooked bones are absolutely not okay. However, I go by the rule, no bones. No bones whatsoever at all. I don't care if it's cooked or raw or whatever. I just don't do it because splintering could happen. It can puncture them inside. It can get trapped. It's a rock hard product. The cooked bones are softer, but then that's why they are able to splinter in the body quicker and get into it. Just really, I just don't. I would highly recommend that you don't. If you're new to dog ownership, it's your first dog, just stay away from all bones. It's just easier. It's not worth the risk. Again, I've seen some horrible stuff happen to dogs that have got bones stuck, and you know, I just avoid bones at all costs. So that's it. That's all the stuff you can't feed your dogs. They're quite sensitive little souls, really, aren't they? Look at my little Albert there. They're quite sensitive little souls, really. And their digestive systems, they aren't the same as ours, and they do, you know, there are stuff. There's also stuff, I need to do this, needs to be another video, but there is stuff in the garden that is very toxic to them. That's another video in itself, isn't it? I'll get that done at some point. I want to actually do a video about the garden, because we've got a lovely garden, and me and my husband are both very keen gardeners, but we do have 3 dogs, and so there are certain things that I have to do to keep it all nice out there. So I'll go through that another day. Wait till the sun's shining and take you out there for that. As always, you know where I am. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all under Furry and Spoilt. And please, you know, as always, I love hearing from you. I love hearing how your dogs are doing. And yeah, it's just great to hear from you. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. And me and my boys will all see you in the next video. Bye-bye.